Dave Whitehorn, I think I know most people. So I'm one of the directors of the Atlantic Contemplative Center. The other director is Jim Torbert. So the center's been, is a nonprofit, charitable nonprofit in Halifax. We've been active for about 5 years, and the whole point of the center has been to bring together people who are, hi, welcome, who are doing work with mindfulness in all the different sectors of society. And I think before the center started, there really wasn't a place where everybody who was in that kind of world had a chance to come together and look at the issues that are involved along with everybody else. So that's been our main goal. And this year we thought that it would be useful to start an annual lecture, a public lecture, on the topic of mindfulness and society. Obviously, since we started in 2010, the issue of mindfulness and society has just kind of exploded, really. So we thought, maybe it's time to begin to kind of get together and have a structured kind of lecture about that once a year. And we were very fortunate, of course, to get Barry Boyce to agree to come today and do that lecture. And for people who don't know Barry, he is the editor-in-chief of Mindful.org, Mindful Magazine. He's a longtime contemplative practitioner himself, and over the last 5 years or so, I think he and people he works with, Jim Gimian and others, have become really the journalistic center of the whole mindfulness movement. And in that process, they know everybody who's anybody in that world at this point. And
fortunately,
yes,
it's not that big a world yet.
So we have this rare resource really in Halifax of these people who are right in the, completely connected into what's happening in the world of mindfulness. So Barry chose the topic of upscaling mindfulness, which I'll let him talk about what that means. But thank you to all of you for coming out on such a beautiful Mother's Day and joining us. Hi, come on in, have a chair. And very much appreciate everybody's interest in this, and so I'll turn it over to you, Barry.
Great, thanks, David. The person teaching mindfulness is not selling somebody's shoes. You're presuming to present some way that somebody could work with their own thoughts and their own mind. So that's a tremendous responsibility. Within Buddhism, with all its fabulous context, that has been fouled up many, many times. Because Buddhism is made of human beings too. And there are obstacles that emerge in Buddhism that emerge in any kind of ism. There's a feeling of superiority. Oh, well, I've discovered the way. I went through that in my early religious training. I won't say which religion I was trained in, but maybe the fact that they tried to instill self-control by hitting me on the back of my hand, you may be able to guess. We had the answer. We were superior to every other person on earth with any kind of answer to the human condition. Buddhists, I don't know, occasionally they can be guilty of that. Buddhists can retreat into self-involvement. Buddhists can do all sorts of things. So the mindfulness world and the Buddhist world actually share the same fundamental challenges. It's just that the secular mindfulness movement is newer. And in fact, relying on the existence of Buddhism for its, certainly at least its initial support and development. And Buddhism will always be a choice for people. A lot of the rhetoric on the part of Buddhists who are concerned that mindfulness is watering down and ruining their tradition are really afraid somehow that Buddhism is in trouble. And I really don't believe that it is. And if you require a Stalinist program of thought control in order to maintain your tradition, then I question how healthy your tradition is in the first place. You can't talk about mindfulness that way. Only I get to decide how words are used in the English language by people and what they do every day, because I'm superior. It comes out of my system. The 8 thises and the 4 that's, and if you don't have the 8 thises and the 4 that's, then by God, or I mean Buddha, you're perverting things. So anyway, it's because I think people are a bit more scared than they need to be. So the question is, I think, can mindfulness develop its own context and remain helpful and powerful for people at many different levels and styles of engagement? I don't know, but I think it can, and I believe it will, because I've met hundreds of people doing this work. They're dedicated, thoughtful, energetic, curious, and ethically minded. Far from being zealots who have it all figured out, in the main, they're vulnerable people who have been helped themselves and are seeking to help others. And that's the greatest litmus test. I feel strongly that the mindfulness movement will be supported by good teachers, by developing communities, and by pathways for deepening understanding. Again, one of the great things about Buddhism, that when you make discoveries, you have some sort of path of discovery there, of further discovery. People can help you with that, rather than that at times mindfulness sounds like a one-shot deal. Okay, did my 8-week thing, boom, good, relax, rest of life, over. And we know that that's not true. And meanwhile, in Buddhism, I think the various forms of Buddhism, in their current forms, and in the forms they evolve into, will always be a choice for people. But that does not need to be to the exclusion of people who want to work with mindfulness outside of a religious context. The mindfulness movement is not a threat to Buddhism's existence, and the tension between conservatives and innovators, both within and outside Buddhism, is healthy. Fresh air, light, and a strong breeze are good for you. All right, so what's the real determining factor? It's the teachers. It's the quality of the teachers, I think, is the main determining factor. It's also what you call the rate-limiting step for the growth of mindfulness. The rate-limiting step, in other words, if you can't speed up this particular step, meaning the development of enough mindfulness teachers, then you can't speed up the development of authentic secular mindfulness. So it's the rate-limiting step. And when you have that kind of thing, or a bottleneck, you gotta be careful, man. Try to open it up too wide, speed it up too much. You know, you end up with those tomatoes in the store that they're called tomatoes, but they don't taste like tomatoes anymore. They're better for playing baseball with than eating. So this is the area where we have to be careful and yet innovative. So we need trained teachers who are adhering to standards that can be enforced through mentorship and peer networks.